Welcome back to Michigan's Big Show. Governor Gretchen Whitmer has signed House Bill 4141 into law, banning smartphone use in K-12 schools during instruction time. Somebody who's been involved in that policy is Jack Morabito, Senior Director of Policy at the American Legislative Exchange Council. He's written subjects and policy on this bill. He's joined us on the other end of the line. Good morning, sir.
Thanks for having me on. Excited for the conversation.
Yeah, so I'm sure you've seen this bill by now. How does this align with the ALEC model policy on limiting student use of cell phones in K-12 classrooms?
Sure. Well, it aligns very well, actually, and we, in fact, commend all parties involved, Speaker Hall, the House sponsor, Representative Tisdale, and Governor Whitmer for all aligning on this common-sense approach to help reduce classroom distractions by, like you mentioned, keeping smartphones away during instructional time for students, while still allowing some flexibility for school districts if they want to make some exceptions for maybe contacting parents during the lunch break or something like that. The best part about it is it allows local communities and parents and school boards to still make the decisions that are right for their communities by establishing a state baseline.
How common are these types of policies at the statewide level?
They've become very common in the past 3 years. So actually, since February of 2026, now at least 38 states have adopted new laws or policies that either require school boards to ban smartphones entirely. So you do have some states that are more restrictive that call for what they call a bell-to-bell policy, essentially from the first bell of the day to the last bell of the day, absolutely zero smartphones or electronic devices in the class whatsoever. Others have more permissive approach, where it's only banned during instructional time, but maybe you are allowed under the supervision of a teacher to take it out for instructional purposes if you need to watch a video or do some research on a project in class. So it kind of scales up and down. The laws are not all created equal, but it's something policymakers and school board officials and parents are looking at as a way to keep kids safe online and, again, keep the focus in the classroom and keep test scores up.
So the kid can bring a smartphone into the classroom, they just can't turn it on? Is that the best way to describe it?
That's correct. So I think depending on how the schools will implement it, they either have to keep it turned off and stowed away in their bag, or some schools have implemented either a locker type system or some sort of a pouch mechanism where they would deposit their device at the beginning of the class period and then take it on the way out. Again, some schools, or maybe there's been behavior issues in the past, maybe they need some of those extreme measures, but that's up to the community to decide. Maybe if you have more responsible students and they're able to keep it in their bag, more power to them. Then they can focus on the class period for 50 minutes to an hour and then go about their day.
The American Legislative Exchange Council, otherwise known as ALEC, you all are a think tank for public policy ideas in the state sphere. Now, what is kind of your specialty? Are you education? Are you technology? What are your subject areas?
Primarily, I've been covering a lot of emerging technology issues these days, so that's a lot of artificial intelligence policy. States increasingly, since ChatGPT came out a few years ago, they're looking about the role of artificial intelligence in American society, how there's serious risks about, is it going to impact jobs? Is that going to impact day-to-day life or how we all communicate? Another thing that I focus on heavily for ALEC is energy policy. So, essentially energy affordability is going out of control in a lot of states. So how can state legislators, through smart public policy, reduce electric bills for their constituents, and again, bring more electricity onto the grid, relieve some of that pressure? And that also dovetails with the AI issue. Now that you have new data centers that are being built across the country, how do we build that infrastructure in a smart way that doesn't impact ratepayers at the end of the day?
Yeah, I'm very interested in the AI issue. We've been noticing that here at the state level. We had public policy get passed about fake AI ads and criminal penalties against putting up ads that are AI generated that depict somebody doing something that they actually didn't do. Are you seeing that as well at the state level? Bills or laws preventing people from doing what they call AI fakes?
That is something that I've been seeing as a trend, again, in the past few years. They call these deepfake media or deepfake images. And quite a lot of states, I'll have to double-check if Michigan's done this. If they haven't, they should. But over two-thirds of the states have banned or strengthened penalties for deepfake as it pertains to child sex abuse material or non-consensual intimate imagery online, essentially bolstering existing law, because in all states, I believe that conduct's already illegal, and if it's perpetuated using an AI deepfake, it should still be against the law. Using technology isn't a free pass to get away from the law. But like you said as well, there's also this issue of the use of AI and deepfakes in political advertising or in the context of an election. That is a little bit of a thornier issue. You know, some of those transparency issues may be well-intended, but then you are getting dangerously close to some lines as far as First Amendment speech protections. You know, essentially, if you cut an attack ad, you know, how are you making sure that that's not unnecessarily stifling speech just by having some sort of a deepfake disclosure law? But by and large, I think the American people want transparency and they want some notification. So that could be a smart thing for legislators to look at.
What are some other policies that you're seeing at the state level that are trending in regards to AI? I mean, it is technology that a lot of folks are in some respect a little nervous about, but they realize that there's got to be some guardrails out there.
Yeah, taking it back to the safety issue for kids, that's something where we're talking about at the beginning with cell phones. It's increasingly a question that legislators are facing is how does AI interface with children? So there are several states are proposing new laws that would regulate how kids are able to use AI chatbots. You know, again, some of that is we do want the next generation of kids to be technologically literate. You know, we want them to have the digital skills they need to succeed. So some of these laws, in my opinion, go a little bit far afield as far as overly restricting kids. But there are some legitimate questions. You know, there have been some situations where 2 AI companies have been facing litigation over the tragic deaths of some teenagers that, you know, purportedly they use an AI chatbot and that resulted in them ending their life. So perhaps there's a middle ground there. Some states, like Utah, actually have been having a great approach where they balance the needs for building AI innovation and AI talent while having some guardrails in place. They actually passed a law last year regarding the use of AI in the mental health space for therapy, and essentially would provide some basic transparency guardrails and, again, some requirements that the third-party data can't be used for things like third-party advertising. So it's kind of some common sense guardrails, but not an overt ban or stifling of the technology. So that's something Michigan, I'm sure if they aren't already looking at that, this AI and chatbots and kids and the mental health issue probably going to be top of mind for your legislators this cycle.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that has been a topic of discussion. The Senate Democrats have put out several bills in regards to that. They're calling it Kids Over Clicks, and it's bills requiring big tech corporations to include safety measures that are designed to protect kids from predators, harassment, and online addiction. On its face, it sounds like a great idea, but you did mention there are some First Amendment issues that you have to take into consideration when you put this stuff out there.
Yeah, you're definitely right. And one of the things, especially when it comes to things like compulsory age verification or ID checks, one thing you have to keep in mind is if you're going to ID check children, you have to ID check everybody. So that means, you know, lawful adults who are just trying to access what's more or less the public square these days by going on a platform like X or Instagram or TikTok even. They've said there's even some groups like the ACLU will, you know, have balked at the, you know, is that an artificial barrier to accessing speech?
And that's a question that's going to be answered here in state legislatures across the country. Jake Morabito from ALEC, appreciate you joining us on Michigan's Big Show.